when you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, and
Yes.
you see all these writers and they make it look like it's easy for them.
Write a book in 72 hours.
Yes,
Yeah.
right? And it's not.
Hello, this is Louise Dean, founder of the Novelry, the world's best loved school for writers, with more 5-star reviews than any other and a whole bunch of published success stories. As an award-winning Booker-listed author, I founded the Novelry to help writers avoid the frustrations of writing solo for years by getting wise eyes on the most important element of writing right from the get-go. Story, story, story. And this is our podcast to give you everything you need for happy writing. This is the Novelry on Writing.
Hi, I'm Gina Sorell, and I'm the author of Mothers and Other Strangers and The Wise Women. And I'm also a writing coach here at the Novelry, where I specialize in contemporary fiction and women's fiction. And I'm also here with author and writing coach.
Hi, I'm Colleen Oakley. I am the author of 5 women's fiction titles, the latest, The Mostly True Story of Tanner and Louise. And I coach at the Novelry. I work with women's fiction, romance, uplit, book club fiction. We're pretty similar.
Yes,
We
yeah,
do,
book
yes.
club fiction. I always forget that's a great category, book club
Yeah.
fiction. And we're here today to talk about writing tips, things that get you unstuck, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
something like getting stuck is something that happens to everybody.
Yes.
And I think that that's actually something that a lot of writers feel really bad about.
Mhm.
They think that it says something about where they are in their writing journey, that maybe they're
Yes.
not experienced enough or they don't have what it takes. And, I would just love people to know that that's not true, that I
Right.
still get stuck.
Yes, that we
and
all feel it.
We all feel it, and in all phases of the novel writing process.
sure.
I think also sometimes people think that they just get stuck maybe at the very beginning because they're
Right.
getting that idea on the page,
Mhm.
It's
Or
the
they
very
don't
first
know
time.
what they're doing.
Yeah,
right?
they don't know what they're
Right.
doing. I haven't done this before. I don't have enough experience, But we've both written many books, and it's something that keeps coming up because it's just part of the writing journey. So I
Yes.
think it's really helpful for people to know if there are things that they can actually do when that panic starts to set in, that you are stuck and you have
Yes.
writer's block.
And we've been stuck so much that we have tips for that.
Yes, we do. We have some really great tips for that. So I think my first one is don't panic.
Yes.
I mean, just trust that you will get through this. It's
Yeah.
going to pass.
Right.
I remember when I wrote my first novel, Mothers and Other Strangers, which, I should also mention was my first published novel, right? Because
Right.
a lot of us have written books that are
don't get
getting to
published.
that first book,
Right.
And that was, there was a time there that I was really stuck, like in between drafts, where I was really trying to understand like how to balance the backstory and the front story, and I had all these flashbacks and I had different timelines, and I was really I remember just thinking it's never going to work. I'm
Right.
going to just have to put this in a drawer and cry myself to sleep for the next
Oh,
year.
yeah.
But something happened like over time, it unlocked, and one of the ways that we'll talk about the different ways that it can unlock later on, but that was a genuine panic. I really wasn't sure that I was going to be able to get past that, and of course
Right.
I did, right?
Yes.
And we all will, like
Yeah.
we'll all get through it. Have you ever had an experience
Oh
like that?
gosh, how let me count the ways, right? Yeah, and I think especially early on, those first couple of books, I've been stuck on
Yeah.
every single book.
You
so
have,
that's
yeah.
the most important thing to say.
Yeah, I think that is important.
Is
for
that
people
it's
to
part
know.
of the process.
Absolutely.
I think it's so easy to forget that.
Yep.
When you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, and you
Yes.
see all these writers and they make it look like it's easy for them.
Write a book in 72 hours.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. And it's not. I
No.
think maybe it is for like 1%. I don't
Sure,
know.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
it easy for anyone? But yeah, I think it's really important to say, especially for new writers, that it is just part of the process. It's
Yeah.
like working on this big puzzle. I also kind of liken it to, when you have like a necklace and it gets kind of all knotted up.
Oh, the chain gets all
Yes,
tangled.
and it's
yeah.
very hard to undo.
Yeah.
You really have to have the patience,
Yeah.
but you know that you will get it unstuck. And it's the same with books. It will get unstuck. Every single book that I've been stuck, my husband loves to remind me of this,
Yeah.
because I will come to him like in the middle of the writing process and I'll be crying. No, this one, I'm so
Yeah.
stuck. I'm a bad writer.
Yeah.
I'm never going to figure this one out. I don't
Yeah.
know why I thought I could write this
Yeah.
book, right?
Yeah.
And my husband always says at the beginning, he would panic. Like the first couple books. He
Like,
would
what
go,
have we done?
yeah,
Oh, no.
what can I do?
No,
Is this the right book for you?
Yeah.
I don't know. Should you be doing
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
And he'd try to like help me figure it out. And now I come to him crying and he's like, well, I mean, you're 30,000 words in and you do this every book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. This one's different.
Yeah. This one is different. No, but it's,
Right.
it does feel different every time.
Yeah.
And it will happen at different parts of the novel at every time.
Right.
You know, but you will get through it every time.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. It's like, I also think of, the Wizard of Oz, like,
Yeah.
you always had the power to go home inside of you. And I do feel like, you have the answers inside of you.
Yeah.
You just don't have the answers yet.
Yeah. And just like that chain, you don't untangle it all at once.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Do a little bit and then you come back. So definitely don't panic.
Right.
And the other thing that I like to do, a second tip would be, I like to get moving.
Me too.
I actually, I just like to get moving. Like just shake my body up, do something different. Like sometimes literally shake my body up. I have one of those like mini trampolines that I jump on, a little rebounder.
Yeah.
And I'll just, sometimes I'll blast some music and I'll just jump on that, or I'll have like a little dance break, or I will go for a walk around the neighborhood, without music to like, work out plot points.
Yep.
Same thing with my first book. I think I covered all of Los Angeles on foot. I mean, really, like every day I would just walk for hours trying to untangle it. And it actually made a big difference.
Yeah.
Like there's something about putting my body, moving through space, letting it work in my subconscious, seeing other stuff.
Yes.
And also just being reminded that it wasn't a life or death situation. There was still like a world going on outside of my office that other people were operating quite fine in, that I could one day participate in. That made a really big difference to me. Do you do that? Do you move?
For sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. I remember my first book, Before I Go, when I was working on that, I got really, really stuck. I think I'm sure halfway through. Halfway always seems to be a really
is
messy
tricky.
place for
Squishy
me.
middles, I call
Yes,
them.
yeah. And I remember I was really stuck, and not having done it before, I didn't know, is this normal? All that panic and anxiety really started to sit in. Like, can I do this? You just really start to doubt yourself. And I found myself sitting at my desk day after day and staring at the computer and kind of wallowing in that anxiety.
Oh,
like
no.
spiraling. And that just makes it worse. I mean, talk about don't panic. The panic just ratchets up.
Yeah.
And so I very vividly remember pushing myself away from the desk. And we had like a really messy, kind of dead garden at the mailbox.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to Home Depot and I'm going to get flowers. And I went out and I redid the whole little flower section at the mailbox, and it looked beautiful. And so for half of the time, I was feeling very guilty. I was like, I'm not a writer.
I'm not writing.
Yes, I'm not writing.
I'm not at my desk.
I'm not a real writer. I've quit. I felt like I'd quit on myself and given up. But then as I was working, things started to unravel.
Yes.
And I got like a little piece of dialogue, or like a little, maybe the chapter could start this way.
Yes.
And that was really the first kind of lesson that I had given myself of like, you can still be working while you're not sitting at the desk. Like your brain is still working on the story.
No, 100%. The 10,000 scones that I baked when I was stuck last time, I can absolutely attest to that. Like it does, it makes a big difference. You're doing something.
Yes.
And it's also, you're doing something I think that has a sense of completion.
Yes.
Right?
Oh,
Because you're digging
point.
in and then it's done, or you're baking and it's done.
Yeah,
so
it's like an accomplishment.
It's an accomplishment. Yeah, it's a tangible accomplishment while you're working on something else in the background. I think that that's really important.
Yeah. And I think to your point, you were talking about, walking without the music. I think that's a huge point because, typically when I walk my dog, I'm listening to a podcast or I'm listening to music.
Or an audiobook.
Yeah. And when I'm stuck, I find if I don't listen to anything, if I just be silent, like that can be a little anxiety making at first.
Right.
I'm so used to multitasking.
Right.
But just taking that hour walk through my neighborhood without listening to anything, and it really lets your brain wander.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is why I also get a lot of ideas in the shower.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you do that?
In the shower, yeah, no, not as much for me. There's something wrong with my shower. No,
You need to build a brand new shower.
I need a new shower. Yeah, no, it's definitely walking.
Yeah.
It's definitely walking and baking.
Yeah.
And that's really when it happens for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just because I love seeing beautiful things and that inspires me. So I look at other people's gardens. So
Oh, nice.
you keep gardening. I'll look
You'll
at
come
your
look at it.
garden.
I'll come
be
eat scones.
inspired. I'll get unstuck. I'll give you scones. We're settled. That's it. It's done. Next book, easy peasy.
That's right.
But with music, that's actually my third tip would be music can help you sometimes, but maybe used in a different capacity, right? So I have a playlist that I create for every book. And so sometimes I'll remember that, I wrote the opening with these like 5 songs on repeat, ad nauseum. But, and then if I'm stuck in the opening, I'll go back to that and I'll play that music again. And sometimes it kind of unlocks it. Like it reminds me,
Okay.
this is where you were, this is how you felt, this is what you were thinking. And even if I can't actually solve the thing that I'm working on, it calms me down because I like the music, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I created that playlist.
Do you create it at the like before you start writing? You
it kind of happens
as you're going.
Yes, it
Okay.
kind of happens concurrently, which is really interesting. And there are some songs that I will transfer from book to book just because they're like getting me in the mood to write.
Right.
You know, like they are, and often they're things that like, they have maybe a little bit dancey, but I'm not going to get lost in the lyrics.
Yes.
It has to be something that I'm familiar with too, right? So that I'm not just thinking about the song as I'm sitting there.
Singing along to it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, it's a full dance party. It's a full dance party at my desk. But I find that sometimes really helps.
Yeah, that's
Do you
interesting.
create playlists?
Well, I don't, but I do have songs that I know will put me in a specific emotional mood.
Right.
So like when I was writing You Were There Too, which is quite a heavy emotional book, and there were very
Yes.
heavy, very sad scenes
Yeah.
that I needed to get in that zone for. I will put on those songs that I know kind of put me in that mood.
A sad song playlist.
Yes. So I just start crying.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's healthy.
Yeah.
You let it release.
Yeah.
But I do. I think that music can be really powerful.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's.
I'm gonna have to try that. I think that's super interesting how it can trigger you, almost remind you like this is the writing time.
Yeah, this is the writing time, or this
Yeah.
is what the character was thinking.
Yes.
This is how they were feeling, and sometimes that can sort of trick your way back into a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful.
With courses, coaching, and community, the Novelry is the world's top-rated writing course. With our 5-step program, you'll come up with the idea for a novel you can't wait to write, then you'll write a finished draft, and you'll edit your novel into a book that readers will love. A Big 5 publishing editor will review your novel and will take you through to leading literary agencies with our fast-track submission process. So, if you've got a book in you and you've never found the right time to write it, now there's a good place. Come on over to the Novelry. Beginners welcome. We'll show you how to start, coach your story into shape, and cheer you on to type the end.
You have a really interesting thing that I'd never heard of before that I would love you to tell for our 4th tip.
Yes. Okay. So this one also comes with a caveat.
Okay.
So, when I really, really get stuck, if it's one of those where it's not just like, it feels like I really can't move on.
Right. Garden's done. All the walking's
Yes,
happening.
yes.
Eating all the scones.
I've done
It's
all
like,
the tricks.
Yeah.
And I just have no idea how to unknot the story. I will physically send it, like email it to my mom or my sister, which is this very panicked. I mean, don't panic, but I do panic.
Yeah.
This very panicked, I'm so stuck. I don't know what to do next. And I say with the caveat because particularly a first draft, particularly for new writers, you don't want to send it out for feedback. You don't want cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a mess. You don't want anybody, kind of derailing you from the first
100%.
draft. But for me, that act of getting it off of my desk, it's like it unburdens me. I feel like
Amazing.
it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
It's now my mom's problem.
Yeah.
And even though I know she's not going to fix it, she has no idea what I'm doing. It's a messy first draft. It's something about getting it off my shoulders unburdens me and allows my brain to like just open up.
That's incredible.
Isn't that weird?
And you're just convinced that she's not going to read it.
I mean, she might read it, and that's okay.
Oh.
But for my mom,
Well,
my mom would
yeah.
be a cheerleader.
Yeah,
She would
for
be like,
sure.
it's great. wait, I don't understand the problem, you know?
Yeah.
Like, or she'd let me
It's
just
finished.
talk about the problem, and she
Yeah.
knows that I will figure out the answer.
Right.
So she will be just a sounding board without feedback.
Right.
And knows, you know, I can cry and I'm blah, blah, but then she knows I will work it out. And sometimes I just need to say it out loud.
That's
to her.
wild.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I've never done that.
You
I've never
haven't?
done that. No, but I've emailed it to myself.
Oh, we'll talk about that.
Sometimes I'll just email it to myself. I'm like, okay, you've done it. You sent it somewhere, and like it's sitting. You're not going to lose it. It's just going to live out there.
Yeah.
You know, online in your inbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I usually call it for
That's kind of
safekeeping.
the same thing, right?
Yeah, I guess it's
the
sort of
same mental trick.
I guess it's kind of like the equivalent of like I put all the ingredients away.
Yes.
And I clear the whole workspace.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just like, tomorrow I'll start fresh.
Do you ever like take a break and then work on something completely different, even if it's just like a poem or?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To just...
I'll email a friend a letter.
Oh.
Yeah. I have two friends who it's not just the hi, how's it going kind of emails,
Yeah.
where we actually write letters to each other.
Wow.
And so
by hand or email?
Well, I would love to do it by hand, but no one can read it then by me, right? So that's, you know, but so I do by email. But just sometimes having to, I think, collect my thoughts and get a story out like in a linear fashion.
Yes.
Which is not always how my mind works.
Right.
You know, it's sometimes like, it's tangentially like all over the place, right? And so being able to really focus it and tell somebody, since we last spoke, this is what's happened.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm telling a story and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, you know, and hopefully it's remotely entertaining. But I'm catching up with somebody who I also know really well.
Right.
And who I know cares about me.
Mm-hmm.
And both of these friends are really good at emailing back right away. So there's something about that shifts gears.
Yes.
But it's still about communicating and getting my message across and my story out that I think can also really help me sometimes.
That's so interesting because it reminds me, my next book that comes out in March was probably one of the hardest books I've ever written as far as getting stuck.
Okay.
Which I know that can be disheartening for some writers to hear.
I think that's actually very heartening because, you know, that's so many books in, right?
Right, right.
And it's coming out in March.
And you keep hoping that it'll just get easier and easier. And it's, you know, but it's just not like that. The
I
process
think it gets
is
easier
so different
in some ways and it gets harder in other ways.
Yeah.
You know, there's things that you challenge yourself with or that you want to try that are different.
Right,
You know,
right.
different parts of the process.
Right. So this one was really hard. And I got so stuck that I truly didn't know. I mean, it was like a month and a half of really taking a step back, really trying to unknot this thing and figure out what had I written, where did it need to go, what needed to be revised, you know, the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was really challenging. And what I did was I'm a journalist by background.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, you know what, I'm going to reach out to some of my old magazine editors and I'm going to pick up some freelance work because writing, you know, little short stories, 1,000 words, 2,000 words, it gave me this sense of accomplishment and it reminded me, you are a writer.
Yeah.
You
that's
can
true.
do this.
That's
right.
true.
And it gave me that confidence that I think I needed to then go back into the story. Like, it's like I had been stripped of all confidence.
Oh.
And I felt like I'm not a writer anymore. You know, I forgot how to do this.
Yeah.
And so it was like building up. It reminded me of the letter you write.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're building up your confidence.
You are.
With these short snippets, reminding yourself, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And I also sometimes like to read other people's stories.
Yes.
You know, like some writers are really great about sharing their stuff online or talking about their experiences. And I always think it's amazing, you know, how we'll forget that everybody feels this way. Like everybody feels this way at some point. You know, some of the most accomplished writers will talk about, oh, yes, that project was so challenging. It took me a year to figure out the plot line. Like, what? But it's going to happen and it still turned out successfully.
Right.
You know? And I think sharing those stories and hearing other people's tips can really help.
Yeah.
I also sometimes just like to, and this is my fifth tip, is I just like to change environments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny, I really do like to control my environment. So I'm not necessarily somebody who's like, oh, I'm so good at this coffee shop listening to your conversation. Like, I'll just listen to the conversation, which can also be inspiring. Sorry for all the people I've eavesdropped on. But sometimes I'll just go to a different part of my own home. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'll go to the living room or I'll sit outside, you know, or I'll sit in a different part of my office. Just shifting the environment a little bit, or I'll write in the park. You know, I like to get outside as much as I can.
Yeah.
And I think that will sometimes just change the way that I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm not necessarily working on my novel, like I will just maybe go with my laptop and send the emails from a coffee shop, that kind of thing I'll do.
Yeah.
Or I'll just take a page or a paragraph that's really troubling me, something that, I don't have a giant expectation of myself that I'm going to solve the whole novel today in this
Right.
coffee shop. But it does shift. It does
Mm-hmm.
shift things. And I think any time that I can shift those things, makes a big difference. And I think also it's just when you get outside of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you get outside of your environment, it's a really great reminder, and I said this with the walking, that there's a huge world out there and it goes on.
Right.
And that's so helpful to see, and to remember to have a sense of lightness about it and a sense of humor about it, and to
Mm-hmm.
just know that it really is going to be okay. It's so hard sometimes if we're always writing on our own. It gets so insular,
Yes.
just like
And then
shake
it feels
up.
so big.
Then
The
it
problem
feels
feels
so
big.
big, and it's really like all of it can actually be solved really quite easily,
Right.
if we just trust that it will happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, it's interesting because the physical movement or changing locations, it's like physically unsticking yourself.
Yes.
Because you can sometimes relate, like, well, I've been stuck at my desk. Like, that is
Yes.
where I was sitting when I couldn't figure this out. And so subconsciously, when you move to a new place,
Yeah.
it's like allowing yourself to not be in that stuck place,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
And with location, like, I will do a lot of different writing retreats throughout the year. I have
That's
4 kids, so
so
I
smart. Yeah.
got to
you
get
need a
away
writing
from
retreat.
those responsibilities of home, which can kind of weigh on
Yeah.
you. And so like sometimes I'll go to my parents' house in Savannah, and one time when I was on their couch, I wrote like 8,000 words in 2 days.
Oh my
Isn't that
gosh.
the most I've ever written in my
Bonkers.
life?
Yeah.
Yes. And so that almost feels like a magic place to me.
Oh,
And so
that's
I'll
great.
be like, I have to come exactly to that couch.
What outfit was I wearing? Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So yeah, and then I think the other, I love Rick Rubin and the Creative Act.
Okay.
And the thing about being physical and changing your environment, he suggests that you walk backwards,
Okay.
which is such a weird thing.
Yeah.
But
Can't say I'm going to try it.
but I have done it. I've done it, and my neighbors are probably like, "What is?"
Oh, just to
she
shake it
doing?"
up.
Yeah, just to be a little different.
All right, well, apologies to everybody in my neighborhood as
That's
I fall
right.
down. Right, it's going to happen. Well, this is so inspiring. I find it really, it's been helpful for me to hear all the tips
Me
that you
too.
use, right? Yeah, I know. I clearly need to shower more often. And, but thank you so much for
Thank
sharing all of them. I
you.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been great.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. We're so pleased to have you along for the writing journey, and we hope to see you on another episode of The Novelry on Writing. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at thenovelry.com. From first draft to finished manuscript, at The Novelry you'll enjoy one-to-one coaching from best-selling authors, live writing classes with award-winning authors and literary agents, and you'll work with a publishing editor all the way for submission to literary agents toward a publishing deal. All writers learn from other writers, even the greats. Write your novel in good company. Join us at The Novelry. We'll show you how to start, coax your story into shape, cheer you on to type the end.